Welcome back to the PEAQ Performance Podcast. Now, today the room's looking a little bit emptier. We've changed it up a little bit different. We're doing a solo episode today, Sean. How you feeling? You ready for it?
Well, thanks for having me, Jaimi.
No.
This is for those who don't know. This is probably the first time we've just been alone together for probably about 6 years.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely
This
to
is
spend
like
some
a
time
date,
with you.
maybe.
This is actually a Saturday night here, date night.
Poor Kim's joining us for the date today.
No, I'm excited. I am looking forward to it. I think hopefully people will enjoy seeing maybe a little bit behind the scenes. We've got a few things. Well, there's many rabbit holes we can go down. So I have no idea where we're going to go. But you kick us off, Jay.
Yeah, so I think today it's a nice opportunity, maybe therapeutic opportunity for us to unload the past 8 months, particularly focusing on that transition from PEAQ 1.0 to our new home at 2.0, which is wild. I actually can't remember a time when we were at the old PEAQ, right? It kind of feels like a bit of a blur and that we have been here for so long now, and it's hard to imagine a life sort of before where we are now. So we're going to, have a bit of a recap, have a bit of a chat. This could go a bit rogue. I don't know. We'll see how we go. Sean's 40th coffee might have hit the bloodstream for today. It's a competition between you and Callie at the moment, I think, who's fueled by as much espressos.
He's still winning.
He's winning?
He's still winning,
Okay, all right. Oh, he can keep that crown if he's listening. And then we did ask for the community to send in a few questions, so we'll get through as much as we can of some of those questions towards the end of the episode. But I guess we're at that, 8 months mark now, roughly?
Just over. Yep, for sure.
Since we moved. So I guess, how's it been for you? How's it feel?
Yeah, amazing. I think similar to you that it now seems hard to even consider how we operated at the old place. And it's funny, it's always with hindsight and foresight. Do you remember the build-up? I remember PEAQ 2. So for those who don't know, we are very grateful that probably sort of years 2 and 3 were really good to us at PEAQ 1.0. And it was at that time, that we decided we wanted to look for a space bigger. For us, we considered a number of options in terms of expansion when we sort of felt like that we'd maxed out our other place, which was only 400 square metres. And to us, it just didn't feel right looking at multiple locations or turning into a chain or franchising, those sorts of things too, just because quality control is so important to us. We don't want to become those faceless business owners that sort of sit in the back and people don't know who they are.
It's hard because at the last business you had your face on the wall. So
for those who don't know, we actually have that beautiful picture at home now in our lounge room. Beautiful.
No, it's actually sitting stuffed under a desk in the staff room. Side story. Thank you to Marcus, if you're listening, one of our staff members who stitched me up and thought it would be hilarious. At our end of year Christmas sort of staff get together, we have done some sort of anonymous Kris Kringles, and Marcus got me. Well, no, actually. Backtrack even a year before that when we started the Kris Kringle, and the lovely Zeke, if he's listening, got me at a netball Kris Kringle. I got stitched. It's been a bad year for me in Christmas Kris Kringles. I'm a bit triggered by it, to be honest. Long story short, if you've ever played the sort of Bad Santa game, you get a number between 1 and whatever. If you're the first person, it's the worst opportunity because you can't switch your gift. So all subsequent people can either choose a gift that's already been unwrapped or choose one of the unwrapped ones on the table. So I got number 1. And the coach at the time bought a real-life goldfish. and I picked, out of 30-something presents, the goldfish. And I was devastated. I'm a mum of 2 kids, live a busy life. I did not need another living object to care for. Maybe a bit Grinch of me, and if I told Matilda, she'd be devastated that I didn't bring a fish home.
I was upset,
but I was so upset.
I was pretty flat.
I was so flat.
I wanted the fish.
Other people were getting makeup or vouchers for things. I was sitting here with this bloody goldfish. I was not happy. Anyway, turns out someone saved the day and took the goldfish from me, and it was a bit of a funny story. One of my girlfriends from netball took a picture of me and put it on social media saying how funny she got stitched up with this goldfish. The lovely Zeke saw that, and not long after that, for our staff Kris Kringle, got me. And he thought it would be really, really funny to stitch me up with a second goldfish.
And he claimed claims to have paid $80 on that
Yeah,
goldfish.
and the
It
limit
like a
was
special.
the limit was about 15 or 20
It
for
was a
Chris
special
Kringle.
goldfish.
Worst $80 you've ever spent, Zeke. Like, I hope it was worth it, as I was also very salty. Anyway, thanks to another one of our staff members, they took the goldfish and gave it a new home in a pond where it would be cared for. So that was traumatic. So the next year, I decided to opt out of the staff Chris Kringle. Marcus was not happy with that at all, and devised a little plan when we moved to 2.0 to cut your lovely head off of the wall, the infamous supplement catching holding picture at Old Peak, and wrap it up and deliver it to me so I wasn't missing out on a Chris Kringle present. So thanks heaps, Marcus, and now I've got trauma about Chris Kringle.
That's probably the highlight, I think, of our opening so far, to be honest with you. That was amazing. But that was purely because at that point in time, that was the only professional photo, I promise you, that we had. And I felt like it just needed a bit of a zhuzh in the facility.
Yeah.
That beautiful little tub of pre-workout powder that we used to actually manufacture, but that's a story for another time, was tied to a chin-up bar above and was physically just holding there. So
smoke and mirrors. Don't believe anything you see.
Yeah, I have completely lost track of where we're at. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, faceless. We said we don't want to be faceless.
Yes.
So we decided to move to a bigger facility as opposed to have multiple locations. Finding really good quality people is hard, and maintaining community is hard, and we felt like that's sort of been our superpower. So, that's sort of why we decided to look for a bigger premises, obviously. We looked around the place, looked at lots of pre-existing facilities, but there was always a but. There wasn't enough car parking, or it was filled with asbestos, or wasn't the right makeup, and so on and so forth. We did actually go down the path and signed a contract for the premises that is now the Red Star and a number of other businesses right next to the big shed. However, again, because we wanted to take out multiples of those warehouses, it fell through council at the last minute because of not enough numbers of car parks per square metre. So we found ourselves sort of back at square one. And I reckon it was September 2021 or 22 off the top of my head. I reckon 21 that we had our first sit down for this facility here. Some of the agents that we'd been talking to around that time scoped us out, knowing that we were sort of pretty eager and that this was at its very foundational level, had just been purchased potentially. So I remember actually rocking up, and it was just literally overgrown car park. It was gravel. It was pissing down with the rain. We had Matilda in the car, and we met with, I guess, the developers. And at that point in time, it felt like an eternity away. There was obviously a number of sort of processes that we had to go through. I had my beautifully drawn photo or whatever concepts that I thought would look like on paint that I sort of provided to them, and they turned it into something, and then that just sort of evolved over time. We've talked to Sharbs on our podcast as well, who really helped to shape that. But it's been a bit of a wild ride. How's it felt for yourself?
Yeah, same thing. A bit of a blur. I think I reflected on this the other day. I think it's so hard, and we've talked about this when you're in business or when you're, in busy seasons of your life. It can be really hard to sit and actually reflect and go, wow, we've achieved this, or we've done this, or this was really great, or because you're always in the, well, what's next, right? Particularly in business, I think the minute you're sort of sitting on your laurels, and I can't believe I'm saying this, as I'm the one that likes to be in a comfort zone. No, you should be proud. You're rubbing off on me a little bit.
I'm very proud. I think I'm going to tear up this
that, that's when you start to get stagnant. So just a really brief example is, we're really honest and transparent that the fitness industry, or particularly, I guess, our niche in the sporting industry, is we do definitely go in these seasonal phases of busyness and having quieter periods. So right now, literally, I've said to heaps of people that I reckon as soon as we hit that week after Easter, things get much quieter from a gym floor perspective, not necessarily from a business perspective, but just some of that busier sort of density on the gym floor shifts. We're now coming into colder seasons. Motivation can definitely dip. A lot of our winter sports, so the bulk of who we sort of work with is football, netball, basketball. They all go to in-season phases of competition, so maybe we don't have as many of those big team sessions happening on the gym floor. More people sort of shift towards doing recovery and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess having that opportunity now, things are a little bit quieter in that sort of sense. It's been like amazing. It's been really cool through the podcast too to have people with us to remind us of little things or reflect on that journey. And I'm shameless in saying this. I am really proud of us and really proud of our team. And I think any time where you're growing quite rapidly, there's always opportunities for mistakes or things to happen, and I'm really grateful that we've experienced that growth since moving and that support. But I think at the same time we've also been able to maintain the feel from 1.0. That was a comment that we got from lots of our maybe OG members is, oh, I'm nervous. Is it going to feel the same? And, you know, you're growing so much bigger to almost a commercial space now. Like, how are you going to manage that? And I feel that we've done a pretty good job of maintaining the core of who we are whilst also being able to grow.
I think it's a good point. It takes me back to that first opening week, or even the first opening day. But before I delve into that, I think it's important to sort of rewind back a little bit further. We talked about how long it felt like it was going to take, and for me, it was like nothing. Even when the walls went up and things started to get closer, we still couldn't fit the space out. We walked through that empty shell at least 25 times, I reckon, and planned things out. But it wasn't really until maybe those last 6 weeks where it was like, okay, you've got the keys now, you can go. And we're like, okay, we've got to get ourselves moving as quickly as possible. So it went from 0 to 1,000 super quickly. I think we've got so many people to credit who just went above and beyond at that point in time, the number of early mornings and late nights. And I probably did find it challenging balancing being at 1.0 still and still being present there, but also trying to set this place up as well. So often our days, in whichever way, obviously balancing the kids as well, would be early morning in at 1.0, and then at like 8 o'clock you'd delve out to let the tradies in on site and talk about what the plan is and most important tasks for the day were. Then you might bounce back out and go to Jindu, for example, and then come back in the Arvo to catch up with other people and so on and so forth. But, we've probably said it a million times, and please make sure you're feeling anybody I missed. But, the two Blakes, Charlotte, Will and Kathleen, Johnny Liambus, all those people who just went above and beyond to go out of the way for free, to be honest with you, to be hanging TVs or painting, hanging our letters on the wall, sweeping the place, filming content, all those sorts of things. There was just so many people who I hope feel just as much as a part of it as we do, because if it wasn't for them, like we couldn't have done it. They were incredible. But where I was getting to with that is it's funny. You're in this bubble and you're passionate about it. We loved it and we believed in the vision so much. But sometimes, and particularly when you're going along for so long, you start to, wonder, are people going to love this as much as we do? Like, is this going to be received as well as we're hoping? Like, this is a big risk we're taking, and you're just never sure. So I remember leading up to that big opening day, we flicked out a sort of a Facebook event for the open day. And I guess my rule of thumb is, because of people's lives being busy and because it is easy to click, and we're all probably guilty of loosely agreeing to things and then rocking up. I say always expect that 50% of the people who say yes to a Facebook event will rock up. We might have had like 160 people say they're coming to the event. We thought that'd be great. So we're sort of thinking maybe a dribble of 80 people will come in throughout the day, as well as existing members who want to check out their new space and that sort of thing too. We got there early on the Sunday morning, I think it was, and I was rushing around. I was a little bit nervous, sort of cleaning things up, and we had a whole team there, which was awesome. We gave them a bit of a brief of how we would like to show people around. Anyway, the videographer Nachos, our man Nachos, got us to jump out in the court to take a photo, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, like, oh, look outside. So I think we had maybe like 5 minutes before we're about to open. I went and looked outside, and there was like 200 people lined up down the block. And I remember, like, I just teared up. Like, I do cry now. Now that I'm a dad, I do get a bit more emotional. I was like, oh my God. I realised I hadn't like written a speech or anything like that as well. So I just started like quickly whipping down like who's our sponsors.
Speeches.
Well, let's say I put some
One
notes.
Take Bakes does not write speeches.
Some notes referred to. Although saying that, like, I'm very happy with how that speech went, and it brought some tears up. Somebody
I don't know
said,
if Harry will be happy about the speech. If you don't know what we're talking about, it is on our social media. If you want to go and look in our sort of top pinned posts, I think. Oh, is the speech up there?
maybe.
We might have to
We'll go back and
repost
pin
it. We might have to repost it. He does give our beautiful 2-year-old son Harrison a tiny bit of a sledge. And look, Harry, if you're listening later in life, I don't know if you're going to be able to dig this up, if our podcast is even still relevant or out on the internet by the time you can listen to it. But we love you dearly.
This will be the root of all his deep-seated trauma, I'm sure.
But you are a bit crazy, and it was challenging having tiny children whilst also opening a business.
Anyway, I want to shout out Joel Fisher, who's one of our beautiful sponsors here and member, because that's the only part of that speech I wish I could take back because I just stuffed it up. That's the only one I fumbled over. You know, I was like, our equipment partners, and then I was like, Joel Fisher, our housing partner. But I was like, oh, no.
It's kind of
housing,
captures
real
it.
estate. So
Yeah.
sorry, Jolie, I love you dearly, mate. And I was just shitting my pants, to be honest with you.
Well, you
but
did
anyway,
a very good job.
that was a big realisation. And then we had more than 1,000 people walk through our doors on that initial day. And I guess a few times in between, like it was just almost back to back, just tours. The tour of 20. There was maybe 5 or 6 of us just going non-stop for almost like 5 hours, which was unbelievable. I reckon right towards the end of the day, there was a little slot where I didn't have one. I sat back and just thought, oh my God, how good is this? And then we had a beer and a little champagne in the facility after, which was nice. And then on Monday, it was sort of all systems go. But I remember on that Monday, a number of things is our pre-existing members walking around thinking, oh my God, like, as you said, is this going to feel the same? And we were doing our best to make sure that we sort of facilitated that. We obviously had this big burst of new people on board, and I'd already pre-done the programming. What we did, we were halfway through a cycle of some of our programming with classes from PEAQ 1.0. So we just carried on with it because I thought, let's save ourselves a job. Let's not stress too much about sort of having a new block. And that was a real learning curve, understanding the new layout and the new flow of the gym. So it was a Metcon session. It was our first night of it. It was teeming. Like there was so many. I think I counted like 89 people on the gym floor at one point. I'm like, oh my God, we need a bigger facility already. But we had people doing burpees and rowing, and the rowers at that point in time were right next to the lockers. So people were doing burpees right next to the lockers. People were like reaching around there, and I was just looking over it. And I don't think many people notice, but when you're a gym owner and you do care about that sort of stuff, like the flow is really important.
Yeah.
Anyway, that first week was a really great learning curve, and sort of from that point onwards, we managed to sort of navigate that a lot more effectively. But yeah, it's certainly, hopefully from the outside, it looks like we're very poised. But sometimes internally, we're like, oh my God, what's happening? So, did you have to change any of your flow upstairs here, or was it just nice because you had?
We were living the life up in the yoga room. We were, battling away for 4 or 5 years not battling away, that's an exaggeration, but if anything, it was a bit of an upgrade for us in that yoga space. I always joke when I do tours that it's my favourite room in the whole house, as it's a pretty nice view from up there with a nice natural light that comes in through the curtains. And now it's a space that I'm like really proud of. So I think it was actually nice to be like, oh, we've got, this nice new space and all that natural light and a bit more of like noise separation from our previous room with the gym floor and stuff like that. So no, it's been really nice in that yoga space. And shameless plug, if you haven't been to a yoga or Pilates class, it is the hidden secret of PEAQ. We are getting a few more, maybe people that aren't traditionally inclined to use that space. It's been a bonus, I think, of having more room and having it a bit more visible, is people are going, oh, what goes on up there, or what's that for? And now our timetable has expanded. It's been nice to really see those classes and schedule blossom.
Let's be honest, we can say a lot of guys in particular, if we're being sort of very general here, traditionally being turned off by yoga, that sort of thing. Girls do yoga and Pilates, and we'll just go lift weights downstairs. But tell you what, some sessions like Broga up there are some really solid turnouts by the guys. Particularly our 21 to 25-year-old footy players, which we love to see. So I am on my way up there, but
okay,
I
sure.
promise you, it's just because of a schedule clash. I do love it. I know I do take the piss a little bit, but it is very good. I do love it. I don't want to limit you here, but also don't want you to have to expand. Give me between 1 and 3 highlights so far at this new facility, if you can think of it so far. I can give you a couple while you think if you want.
Sure.
I think for me, I think, it's always exciting. And what I want to reiterate, and it's always a great conversation to have, is that, when we've had some of our professional teams coming through, so, we had some AFL clubs come through, a lot of AFLW clubs came through because we have the space and the ability to facilitate that now. That's always exciting because I love, number one, to surround ourselves by the best and continue to learn from particularly some of their practitioners. I love seeing the athletes, which is great. But for me, networking with high performance managers and learning what they do and getting an understanding, if I'm transparent, that we're pretty close to that, to be honest with you, in terms of prescription and those sorts of things. Obviously resources and access to athletes on a consistent basis is something that probably differentiates it, but I think it really excites me. Although I'm very cognizant that that's not the lifeblood of our business. To us, if we were reliant on those organisations, this would not be an operational business. So for us, what is always more important is our people, but it's exciting to have those come in and to have them excited by a facility, like seeing AFL players come in and go, oh my God, this place is awesome, when I know the facilities they come from. And equally, seeing our members light up when they're training next to Harley Reid, for example. So those have been sort of super exciting for me.
Oh, yeah. I don't honestly, as you were talking there and now I was trying to reflect and think, all of it really just comes back to people. I feel like at the previous PEAQ, I talked about this in my episode 1 about how due to just our life circumstances and how the business was set up, that I probably wasn't as ingrained from a day-to-day workload basis in having a frontage and being here in the business. So I've just really enjoyed feeling like I'm actually coming to work now and connecting with our staff. And, we've got that space now. We've got staff rooms, we've got cafe space and tables, and, our staff and members all sort of sit around, and that community feel has almost been enhanced by that. And I feel like I've got to really connect to a lot of our staff. I always have gotten along with everyone and had a relationship, but I think it's sort of enhanced that togetherness feeling of our workforce and our community as well. So I've really enjoyed, being a bit more involved in actually the day-to-day stuff of the business. And then also just some of the new people that we've met. We've got some, love chatting and getting to know all of our members. But we've got some key people. We've talked about Skip before on the podcast. We have to actually show Skip these episodes because he'll love it. I don't know if he'll love it or be embarrassed that we're talking about him, but just some icons of our gym, and really for me that community feel and our people is what makes the difference. We live and breathe this business, and it means so much to us that we have people that feel the same about a space that we call work that doesn't feel like work. Just I guess we've touched on it, that being able to maintain that feeling of community from a much smaller space to this space, I'm really proud that we've been able to do that.
I want to add also public holiday sessions. I love those. I live and breathe those. I can't sleep the night before. For those who have been, we often get somewhere in the range of 55 to 70 people in our public holiday classes, which I love. We uncap it and just let it go. And I like to show people that you can absolutely in this space make that work. So I want to break 80. So if you're listening to this, maybe our 80 listeners, if you can all come down, that would be incredible, because I want to show that we can make it work. And I just, feed off the energy that it brings as well. Now, we had, I guess, threw it out there a little while ago for some questions that we flicked out on Instagram. Do you have any to start us off there, Jay? There's heaps and we can't get through them all, but there's probably a few key ones that we'd love to sort of highlight for sure.
Yeah, well, this one won't take long to answer. As old Bash Performance has written in and said, who's your favourite handyman? It's definitely not Stefan. So yes, Blake, all jokes aside, you are a very handy man who has contributed a lot to this podcast space, to the business. So it's definitely you, and thank you for that. But maybe one that we thought was really good and gave us a couple of points to talk about how we do things at PEAQ was, how do we select our staff?
Well, that's, I think, evolved over time because we didn't necessarily get that right from the very get-go for a number of reasons. But for me, if I was to say right now, yes, absolutely, there needs to be a level of accreditation, but it's personality more than anything. I think it's very, very easy to teach somebody principles of programming and sports science and go out and get your accreditation and those sorts of things. But it's people skills for me. If you can easily and naturally have meaningful conversations with somebody and quickly build relationships, to me that trumps all else. And I think probably our turning point, if I'm transparent, if you to nail it to a point in time, like Zeke, for example, at that point in time, he'd only done, this we're rewinding back years ago now. He's obviously been with us for a long time. He'd only done our Cert 3 and 4, which at that current point in time was lower than sort of the accreditation that we'd previously probably demanded from people who were wanting to jump on board with us. However, we accepted that we would work with him to go get his ASCA accreditation, but his ability just to captivate people. I don't know if I've mentioned this previously or not, but what we love, and in the most safety orientated way possible, prior to going to bed, for example, which is 7:30 for Jaimi and I, we'll log onto the cameras just to make sure everything is nice and safe. We could log on and see Zeke having a conversation with a 21-year-old football player, and then we could log on 3 days later and he'll be having a conversation with a 76-year-old who is trying to train to maintain function for their grandkids and has the same rapport, which for us is like nothing else. Like that is what people come back for. That is what helps to create buy-in and consistency, which will derive you better results than somebody who has amazing understanding of program design and has a great social media, but has doesn't have great people skills, doesn't have great social awareness or emotional awareness, or only gravitates to their own demographic. Like we see a tendency of people that if they are, as I said, a 24-year-old male footballer, they only talk to other 24-year-old male footballers and nobody else. For us, it's about broadening that and making everybody feel welcome, no matter.
So if we tease that apart a little bit, we definitely do have minimum standards.
Of course,
so,
for sure.
like if you were looking to work for us, our minimum that we've set out is an ASCA accreditation. So the Australian Strength and Conditioning Association, that level 1. This is absolutely not a dig at personal trainers or the Cert 3 and 4 we partner with, and definitely have explored some opportunities to put our spin on education for that Cert 3 and that Cert 4, because we see there's absolutely a place in the fitness industry for that. We're just talking about our model and our business, and so that ASCA accreditation is minimum standard, and then it is desirable to either be enrolled in or have completed a bachelor's of exercise science, human movement, whatever it's called at this present time, for our coaches. That's really like minimum of what we expect. And then exactly as Sean said, we're really looking for that culture from a person-to-person perspective. That feel is really important, because you can be taught those other skills. And I guess maybe I was actually chatting to somebody about this the other day, a critique of our staff and our business model early on, as we were quite a young workforce early on, and that definitely comes with some managerial challenges.
Zeke's sleeping in, but that's okay. We love Zeke. We've worked through that now. He hasn't done that for a long time.
No, not just that. When you're young and you don't have experience in the industry, there's you don't know what you don't know, right? So that was definitely a criticism early on. However, 6 years down the road now, 98% of those staff that we invested in are with us now. And so many people say that, like, wow, I can't believe, like, look how far so-and-so's come, or it's amazing to see their business grow, or the opportunities that they've now got, and it's amazing that you've got that consistency and loyalty in staff group. So I guess in business, you can always read books and tell you, this is going to work, do this, ABC, in terms of your staff and your workforce. But we stuck true to exactly like you said, seeing those little like sparks and golden nuggets in people, and how could we then upskill them in other areas to make sure that, yes, those minimum standards are being met, but culture and people is what's important to us.
I know another one of the questions was, what keeps you up at night? Do you have an answer for that one? That was a bit of a curly one, but I don't mind it.
You and your business decisions. No, like honestly, business scares me. I think if it wasn't for you jumping out and creating this wonderful business and opportunity for us and our family, I put my hand up and say I probably wouldn't have done it. I would have followed a bit more of a traditional study, work, working for somebody else sort of pathway. But I'm so grateful to you for doing that and giving me that opportunity to sort of learn on the go and be a part of it, because I thoroughly enjoy it. And I think for me, my role in the business is more that I guess you could call it HR sort of management role, and I really do enjoy that space. Taking the risks is not something I think that sits comfortably with me, but I'm learning to accept that, and I think you're learning to calculate things a little bit more. We on that spectrum, we've met a little bit closer into the middle and picked up some things from each other. I think.
And not to get too sentimental, but I've loved having you, more present at this facility in particular, and you do an incredible job. And honestly, we wouldn't have grown if it wasn't for what you've done in the background. Yes, I do stick big fat posters of myself up and talk a lot on social media, but really you keep the cogs turning. For those who don't really know as well, is we do play good cop, bad cop. You are much tougher than me, and I'm very, very soft. So it's nice to have that balance when we're discussing staff and business maneuvers and things like that as well. So, yes, I'm very grateful to be able to work with you as well, even though I'm sure I can be a little bit stressful. I think for me, what keeps me up is people letting other people in late at night. So I'll check the cameras every now and again just to make sure we don't have any of those cheeky little members. But we've got some technology that sorts that out now. But, yeah, I think just probably for me is on a more maybe individual level is maintaining credibility, even though we are in this space. So in the private world, there are a lot of cowboys, and I know that there's been a lot of S&C coaches that have delved into our realm that have lost all their credibility because they sell themselves out in some capacity, or they become snake oil salesmen, or they try to create clickbait by making all these big statements and those sorts of things. So for me, it's like I want to be super successful in this world, but also I want to maintain credibility because I love the professional world as well, and I want to find that sort of balance between the two for sure.
That's quite a new space, I guess,
Yes,
relative
absolutely.
to the strength and conditioning industry itself. This private side of having a strength and conditioning based private facility is new, and even when we started, I honestly could probably on one hand name across the country S&C based private facilities, and now there would be hundreds, which is amazing that that opportunity has grown for people to have different pathways. I think people are definitely becoming more entrepreneurial, which is amazing post COVID. But yeah, that's a really good point you brought up, that maybe a new thing to grapple with is having a hand in both spaces and still chasing a career.
Last one, I think, before I've really enjoyed our date night so far. I would love to extend it out, but I'm just tired of my 30 minutes. We had somebody say, we've obviously delved a lot into PEAQ 2.0 and our highlights. So what are some of your fondest memories of 1.0? Do you have anything specifically that you can think of there?
Lots of the events that we did. I think we haven't quite tapped into that here yet because we've been on that roller coaster of riding a new facility and that growth and sort of managing what's going on here. But I think we had some really cool events at 1.0, like our 3v3 basketball, like the first original competition that was in conjunction with Lululemon, that 24-hour basketball competition, which you probably have some worse memories of. You put in some big shifts there.
I was seeing some demons at like 4 and 5 in the morning. It was bad.
Some of our charity events, I think, some of those were really big highlights of what community is. Yeah,
amazing. I think, that feeling at the end of that 24 hours was unbelievable, and just the way that the community showed out. And, particularly as well, you remember at 6 p.m. when the place was heaving and we had the especially the All-Stars game, that was just unbelievable. The roof was blowing off. So that for me was super special. I think it's interesting. I think there's great memories. You say like your fondest memories or your highlights, but there's so many poignant memories that may not be good, but were great learning lessons or are funny along the way. So I've probably talked many a times about our opening weekend, at PEAQ 1.0, which I thought was very memorable in the fact that there I was, I thought we're living the dream now. I had back-to-back bookings. I was doing all the coaching. Had a netball team coming through. The session went to plan. I was giving myself a little pat on the back and the head. We nailed it, and the group was doing a bit of a cool down, and one of the coaches comes up to me and says, "Oh, we're missing Emily." I can't remember exactly what the girl's name was. It's quite a while ago now, and I was like, "I'm not sure where Emily is, to be honest with you," but in my head I was thinking, "Who cares? She'll be fine." Anyway, found out a couple of minutes later that Emily had gone to our one and only bathroom. For those who didn't have the joy of visiting PEAQ 1.0, I had a singular toilet in there. And we'd done a conditioning block, and she felt sick right at the end and had vomited but missed the toilet completely. And it was that point in time that I realised we had no cleaning products. I was like, oh my God. So I was on my hands and knees with water and paper towel and a fan, trying to wipe that up, and thinking, oh my God, this is not just coaching anymore. This is business. Other times, we've talked about the flood, for example, where I promised Jaimi that I was going to have a week off of work, and then get a FaceTime from one of our members because our internal sort of pipes had exploded and our facility was underwater. Where that brought out both the best and potentially the worst in people. We had some people who came rushing out to assist us. So I'd put up a story to say, hey guys, don't worry about coming and help us out here. The place is underwater. We're going to be shut down for at least a week. We're struggling. So there was a few of us that were like loading equipment out, and we'd sort of placed it into a few spots. Obviously, PEAQ 1.0 was on a slant, I reckon, because for those of you who remember, there was like a hallway that led into the facility. That place was dry, but everything else was underwater. So I had these amazing people who were on hands and knees, like pushing water out. But in the same vein, to be honest with you, we also had, and I'll say this because they're not with us anymore, so it's fine. We had a couple of members who rocked up who obviously hadn't seen the story go up, and sort of looked around. They realised that we're on our hands and knees in water, in puddles. All of our cardio equipment was in the hallway. And I said, I'm so sorry, guys, we're shut down. Like, my livelihood is underwater right now, and I've got a 2-day-old baby at home. And they said, oh, drive will still work out. And I was like, my jaw hit the ground. And while we're on our hands and knees for the next 45 minutes, those people sat on an exercise bike in the hallway. So, it's been, the best and worst, but all really sort of formative experiences. And every little bit of that has led up to what it is today. And I'm sure, I still think each week, now I've seen it all, I'm sure there's probably going to be some other things that pop up that we just never expected. But very grateful for the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything that's sort of popped through.
Well, it's clear we need to either go to therapy or have these date nights here a bit longer, a bit more often, because we've well exceeded our time cap.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but hopefully you've enjoyed getting a little bit more insight into the business and our closed-door conversations. Thank you for joining us on our date night, and hopefully we can do a few more of these. I think it would be good to deep dive into some more business-related things. So if you've got any questions or topics that you'd like us to talk on, feel free to chuck some of them in the comments. But thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next episode.